Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of Meezan lecture series. As you all know, in this series, we study the treatise authored by Ustaz Javed Ghamidi on his understanding of the contents of Islam. And in our current discussions, we are following his chapter that relates to faith and beliefs. Specifically, today we'll start off with a subtopic of this chapter, and this relates to belief in the hereafter. So, of course, this is a belief that is fundamental to our belief system. It is something that makes us realize that we are accountable in the next world for whatever we do in this world. So, Ustad Ghamidi, the way he has adopted in explaining subtopics of a main chapter is that he cites the main verse, the basic verse or the main verse that relates to the topic under discussion, and then we go on and have a detailed look at some of the contents of what is to be understood. So the basic verse that he has chosen in this regard is now being displayed before you. This is Surah Zilzal. I am just going to read the translation before you. It says, "They should remember the day when the earth is shaken the way it should be shaken, and it casts forth its burdens, and man cries out, 'What is the matter with her?' On that day she will narrate all her story at the intimation of your Lord. On that day men will issue forth individually so that their deeds can be shown to them. Then whoever has done the smallest bit of good, he also shall see it, and whoever has done the smallest bit of evil, he also shall see it." So this is the basic verse that you can say is that relates to the concept of the belief in the hereafter. So this belief occupies a central position in the preaching mission of the prophets of God. It is on the foundation of this belief that the pillars of the Sharia, virtue, and righteousness stand. Prophethood is also based on it. A Nabi, who is actually a prophet, is a Nabi because he actually foretells this Naba'ul Azim, which means the great news. And a Rasul is a Rasul because he brings the message of its advent. John and Jesus, Moses and Abraham all came to proclaim it. The Torah tacitly refers to it, and the Psalms clearly mention it. In the Gospel, Jesus has warned that on the day of judgment, only those people will enter the kingdom of heaven who will please his heavenly Father. The Quran is a bearer of warnings and glad tidings for this day. It says that the manner in which people wake up from sleep, the manner in which rain enlivens a dead piece of land, the manner in which a whole human being comes into existence from a mere drop of water, in the very same manner, mankind will be made to rise one day from their graves. Raising up mankind on that day would not be of any bother for the Almighty. When the addressees of the Quran expressed their wonder on being recreated and inquired after the being who would enliven these decayed bones, the Almighty replied in the Quran that the very being who created them the first time would create them again. The whole process is as easy for him as uttering a word is for us, and hence we know the Quran has said, فَوَرَبِّ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِنَّهُ لَحَقٌّ مِثْلَ مَا أَنَّكُمْ تَنْطِقُونَ, which means, are we to deal with those who submit to us as we deal with those who transgress? أَفَنَجْعَلَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ كَالْمُجْرِمِينَ, and that is something which we all know. أَفَنَجْعَلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ كَالْمُجْرِمِينَ مَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ, are we to deal with those who submit to us as we deal with those who transgress? What is the matter with you? What is the judgment you give? So the Quran says that it is a human being's own nature, his quest for justice and his awareness of good and evil that require the advent of a day of judgment. If God is just and fair, then such a day must come. His providence, mercy, power, and wisdom, as well as his laws and practices, all entail that human beings face a day of accountability. Without belief in such a day, religion is mere wishful thinking. The concepts of virtue, piety, justice, reward, and punishment become baseless. And without such a day, the universe has no purpose and can only be regarded as the playground of divine forces, as we see in Greek mythology. The testimonies, indications, sites, and events of this day are something that have been described in the Quran. So we will look at this belief in the hereafter under four subheadings. So one of them would be the testimonies, which would mean that how do we believe that the day of the hereafter is something which is a rationally understood reality. Then we will look at some of the indications, which means what are the predictions and prophecies of the comings of the hereafter. Thirdly, we'll see the sights and events of this day, the way they are described in both the Quran and the Sunnah, like, for example, heaven, hell, barzakh, all these have been described in the Quran. So we'll be looking at all these issues separately, one by one. But to start off, we'll look at the testimonies, that what are the proofs, what are the testimonies which make us fully believe that this is not something that we have to blindly believe in. It is a belief that has basis in our intellect and can be understood. So the first thing which is presented in this regard is human beings' awareness of good and evil. So all of us, we know good and evil innately. It is because of this awareness that our chiding conscience rebukes us on every evil. It is a small court of justice which is found within ourselves, which delivers its unbiased verdict at all times. Whether he accepts it or not, a person is able to clearly listen to this verdict after every blemish that emanates in his thoughts and deeds. This continues until he becomes so deeply involved in evil that this evil completely surrounds his faculties, thereby lulling the calls of his conscience to sleep. This internal testimony of rebuke is a testimony of his own inner self, and that is why it is called the testimony of the rebuking soul, Nafsul Lawwama. The Quran presents it and tells human beings that they will not be left unaccountable for whatever they do. They should know that just as there exists a lesser abode of judgment within a human being, within his own self, similarly a greater abode of judgment will one day be set up for the entire world. And when that takes place, every person will be held accountable before his Lord and rewarded and punished accordingly on the basis of his deeds. And if a person denies such a day of accountability, then it is like denying himself and playing mischief before his own conscience. So, in this regard, we know that what has been said is absolutely, something that is part of our intuition. And the words in this regard that have been said are, they cannot be in any way decreed, because in this regard, our own nafs, which is our own inner self, it testifies to the fact that if we do not present ourselves soundly, then there is something that is amiss. So, therefore, the words are, if I take a look at the Surah Qiyamah, it says that by no means I present as evidence the day of judgment, and they think that the day of judgment is a far-fetched reality. By no means I present as evidence this reproaching soul within you, the Nafsul Lawwama. Does a human being think that we will not be able to bring together his bones? Why not? We can put together his very fingertips. No, this is not so. In fact, the truth is that human beings want to be mischievous before their conscience. They ask, when will the day of judgment be? But on the day when the sight is dazed and the moon eclipsed and the sun and the moon are brought together, this very human being will say, whither to flee? There is no place. No, there is no refuge now. Towards your Lord, that day is the resting place. So on that day, human beings will be informed what they sent forth and what they left behind. They cannot deny it. In fact, a person is himself a witness upon his own self, however much he may put up excuses. So clearly, it is our own Nafsul Lawwama, our reproaching soul, that tells us. So if a person will not be held accountable for his deeds, then where is this chiding conscience coming from? If his creator is unconcerned about the good and evil which emanates from him, then why and from where has he given him the feeling of being elated at a good deed and being pricked by his conscience at an evil deed? Where? And again, the question is that if God has set up a miniature court of justice in every person's heart, in his conscience, why will he not set up a greater court of justice which will hold the whole entire world accountable for good and evil that emanate from it, and not reward and punish people accordingly? Any person who reflects on these questions while disregarding his desires, will reach the conclusion the very being of a person bears witness that he has innate knowledge of good and evil. He will not be left unaccountable. There definitely shall come one day when that person or every person will be punished for their misdeeds and any good deeds will be rewarded. And to remind a person of this very day, the Almighty has placed this miniature court of justice in our conscience. If ever a person becomes indifferent, he can catch a glimpse of it by merely reflecting on his inner self. It is this very reality which sages have taught us by saying that a human being is a miniature world. And within this miniature world, there is a reflection of the mega world. If a person has a true comprehension of his own self, he is able to comprehend both God and the hereafter. And the second thing is the nature of a human being by virtue of which he likes justice and dislikes injustice. So remember, the first thing, the first testimony of the hereafter, the first testimony or the first proof that makes us believe that there is going to be a hereafter is that awareness of good and evil, that conscience that we have, that pricks us on any evil we do or makes us happy when we do a good deed. And the Quran has presented this reproaching soul, the Nafsul Lawwama, as a proof for the greater day of judgment. Coming to the second thing. So the second thing is the nature of a human being by virtue of which he likes justice and dislikes injustice. No doubt, in spite of this dislike, he still perpetrates injustice, but this is not because he is not able to distinguish justice from injustice or that he likes the latter. It is basically because he loses his balance and poise by being overcome with desires and emotions. All of us know that a person may want to steal from another person's house, but he would never ever like someone to steal from his own house. He may kill someone, but would never like that anyone take his own life or that of his relatives. Similarly, a person may be dishonest in weighing his merchandise for others, but he would never be happy if others are dishonest with him in this regard. So, if one asks these thieves, these killers and swindlers about their actions, they would confess that each of these is a crime and should be eliminated. Thus, no one in his senses can regard good and evil to be equal, or that both be dealt with in the same manner. The Quran presents these facts and asks the rejectors of the day of judgment, and this is what it says to them. It says that we have to understand that as far as this equality is concerned, there is no equality. Good people and bad people, they cannot be equated. So the words are, أَفَنَجْعَلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ كَالْمُجْرِمِينَ مَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ. Are we to deal with those who submit to us as we deal with those who transgress? What is the matter with you? What is this judgment you give? Again, the Quran prods us and cautions us that this is not the case. So the second thing is our nature, our human nature, which tells us that we like justice. We would like justice to prevail. We would like, we might commit injustices to others, but we would never like injustice to be committed against us. This shows that we have this awareness of good and evil, this justice in our own soul, and we would like that justice to prevail one day in the form of the day of judgment. The third proof which Ustad Ghamidi says the Quran has presented regarding the hereafter is the incompleteness found both in human beings and in this world. So from whatever aspect these two are seen, it is clearly evident that in every single part of theirs, the great power and wisdom of their maker is evident. In everything, great meaningfulness, matchless order and sequence, unrivaled mathematical perfection and symmetry, extraordinary thoroughness, and immense beauty of creativity astounds one's intellect. On the other hand, if one tries to understand both of them in their totality, one sees great incompleteness and lack of purpose in them. So human beings observe that everything through their very existence proclaims that it has been created for them, but nothing in this world tells them their own purpose of creation. We don't know that. So this imperfection that we are not able to grasp our purpose of creation. Also, one is not able to see any system which judges if human beings have or have not fulfilled the purpose, if ever there is one, for which they have been created. Human beings are innately aware of the fact that they should be held accountable for each favor they have been blessed with. However, they have been left in this world without any such accountability. Therefore, when a person dies, he calmly leaves this world without giving any account of these favors. To make people adhere to truth and justice is the need of mankind. But human beings are not able to see any real motive for this in themselves or in the world around them. That why should justice prevail in this regard? The circumstances of this world negate what his conscience desires, what the conscience of a person desires. It is his natural instinct that justice and oppression and good and evil must be discriminated. However, in this world, this natural instinct of this person is flouted in the worst possible way. This again speaks of that imperfection and incompleteness. There are many people who have left this world without being rewarded for their good deeds, and there are many who have left this world without being punished for their evil deeds. Now, contrary to all other creatures like plants, animals, and inorganic objects, human beings possess an awareness of the future. However, this future always seems to elude him. Hidden within a person are great desires, but seldom are they fulfilled, and often his wishes do not materialize. So much so, the intense desire of observing God, running the affairs of this universe, once he professes faith in God, is never fulfilled in this world. Human beings are not able to go to the extent their imagination can take them. They want to pierce the skies, penetrate the earth, and infiltrate into their own soul as far as they can. And to satisfy their ambitions, they have tried to explore the skies and split the atom. However, all this effort has only proven to them that they cannot realize all the potentials of their imagination. Again, this is a form of incompleteness. Human beings always are searching for a world in which they can liberate themselves from the sorrows and hardships of this world and from their limitations and live a life of happiness and contentment. Now, this desire is found in every human being since time immemorial. However, a person or any person has never been able to obtain this sought after world. On the contrary, he takes to his grave these cherished desires, again signaling that incompleteness that is found in this world. Every single word which a person speaks and every single deed that emanates from him is actually being safely recorded so that they can be recalled whenever required. All his good and evil thoughts are also permanently being noted. The passage of time and change in circumstances do not affect these records. However, what is the purpose of this arrangement? Again, nothing in this world answers this question. The personality, coming to the personality of a human being. The personality of a human being has an existence of its own, which is independent of his corporal being. So we have a personality which is inside our being. It's different. The innumerable cells from which his body is made keep dying and are replaced every now and then. However, his real personality always remains intact, isn't it? Knowledge, memory, ambitions, habits, and thoughts all remain the same and are in no way altered by his cycle. So, where does this personality come from and where does it go? Again, we don't have an answer to these questions. Millions of planets, much larger than Earth, exist in the universe, but there appears no trace of any life in them. Then why have they been created? Human beings do not know. Now, these facts, some of these facts, as you can see, they are ones that show this incompleteness in the purpose of man, and of course in the creation in this world. Now, these facts, these are irrefutable. After this, there can only be two possibilities. First, to regard this world as a meaningless place and come to the conclusion that it is the workmanship of a merrymaker and nothing more. And second, to understand it in combination with the day of judgment, and that every eternal kingdom of God, which has been so vehemently and affirmed by his prophets, is going to come. And what is the intellect? What is the verdict of this intellect? Of course, every person can comprehend. And that is what is the answer which the Quran gives when it says أفحسبتم أنما خلقناكم عبثا وأنكم إلينا لا ترجعون فتعالى الله الملك الحق لا إله إلا هو رب العرش الكريم. So, do you think that we have created you in vain and that to us you would never be returned? So very lofty is the status of God, the true King. There is no God but Him, the Lord of the glorious throne. Again, it is something that we have to understand that as far as God is concerned, that cannot be possible. It's not a option that things be created or what He has created does not have a purpose. So, at another instance, the Quran says, وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا لَاعِبِينَ لَوْ أَرَدْنَا أَن نَتَّخِذَ لَهْوًا لَاتَّخَذْنَاهُ مِن لَّدُنَّا إِن كُنَّا فَاعِلِينَ. And it was not for gaming and sport that we created the heavens and the earth and all that lies between them. Had it been our will to create a game, we could have found one near at hand if we wanted to do this. So, mentioned here or in these verses is the reason that if after this world there is no day of judgment, it has always remained in existence and will continue like this forever, whether anyone does virtuous deeds or evil ones, or does oppression or injustice, and its creator is unconcerned about the good and evil found in it. If that is the case, then this only means that God has created an amusement to entertain himself. He will amuse himself with it until whenever he likes, and when he gets bored, he will just end it and create some new amusement for his own self and enjoyment. So the verse therefore stresses that the heavens and the earth and what is between them have not been created for amusement. From the very way it is, this world bears testimony to the fact that it has been created by a just, wise, and merciful being. Also, we have to understand that this is the judgment that is passed by sense and reason. However, as soon as one gets to know that the hereafter exists, all these questions get an answer, and all voids are filled, and all known phenomena are explained, and everything becomes set in its place. The world now seems to be complete, which in the absence of the hereafter, it did not. There was something missing, something big missing. In fact, the real grandeur of this universe is thus revealed. Human beings can now die with the certainty that whatever they have was not able to, or whatever they were not able to obtain before their death, they will definitely get it after their death. And a person will be blessed with the certitude and the calm which is found in the universe. He will be given an eternal world in which he can realize his innumerable and unending potentials and desires, and where on the one hand there will be the eternal paradise of pleasure, finesse, and meaningfulness, and on the other there will be the fire of hell where the evil will burn and endure their punishments. So the Quran says that this is something that we have to understand at all cost, that the hereafter is one member of the pair of which the other member is the herein. So in other words, the Quran says that the counterpart of this world is the next world. God has created everything in pairs. There is sun with the moon, there is a man with woman, we have night with the day, and so on and so forth. And the counterpart of this world is the next world. And to this reality, the Quran has actually referred to by these words, وَمِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَا زَوْجَيْنِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. And we have made pairs of everything so that you may take heed. And similarly, we have to understand that this paired phenomena is something that even exists in the book of God. And once you are able to understand all these details, the heart of every sensitive person shudders at the concept of accountability. And it is as if he sees the day of judgment before his very eyes. He observes that the earth and the heavens are burdened with it, in the very manner a pregnant lady carries the burden of her child, about which it cannot be said when it shall be delivered, but yes, it shall be delivered. The time might not be known, but the certainty of the event is known. And again, this is something which the Quran refers to in very sublime words and says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ أَيَّانَ مُرْسَاهَا قُلْ إِنَّمَا عِلْمُهَا عِنْدَ رَبِّي لَا يُجَلِّيهَا لِوَقْتِهَا إِلَّا هُوَ ثَقُلَتْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَا تَأْتِيكُمْ إِلَّا بَغْتَةً They ask you about the hour of doom. When will it come? Tell them, only my Lord has knowledge of it, none but he shall reveal it when its appointed time comes. Both the heavens and the earth are under its burden. It will certainly overtake you. So, therefore, we know that this is something that the Quran absolutely is emphatic about, something that our own nature is emphatic about, that the creation of the heavens and the earth and the coming of the night and day, these are signs which men of understanding reflect upon. And of course, as the Quran says, that they remember God while standing and sitting and lying down and reflect on the creation of the heavens and the earth. And their prayer is, Rabbana ma khalaqta haza batila. Lord, you have not created this world without a purpose. Subhanaka faqina azab nar. Glory be to you, for you do not do anything in vain. Save us from the punishment of the fire. So this is something that we have to understand. And as far as God is concerned, his the way we find the evidence spread in scores of pages of the Quran regarding the fact that our own inner self bears testimony to it, our own intuition, then our own nature bears testimony to it, and then the incompleteness found in this world also bears testimony to this. Now, coming to the fourth point, the fourth proof or the fourth rationale behind the day of judgment. How can we find that there is going to be a day of judgment? So, according to Ustad Ghamidi, the fourth thing in this regard relate to the attributes of God, the effects of which are evident in every speck of this universe. The attributes of providence and mercy, in particular, need our attention. Now, after witnessing the extraordinary arrangement made by the Lord of this world to nurture and nourish human beings, how can a person of intellect think that his Lord will leave him unaccountable? And how can it be expected from the merciful and gracious God to not punish people who have made who have made this world a place of oppression? So, for this very reason, the Quran has pointed out at a number of instances that the day of judgment is basically the consequence of God's providence, Rububiyyah, and His mercy, Rahmah, and His power and His wisdom. After professing faith and belief, no one can deny it. So, in Surah Anam, the words are Kataba ala nafsihi rahmah. لَيَجْمَعَنَّكُمْ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. He has made mercy mandatory on Himself. He will definitely gather you to take you to the day of judgment, about which there is no doubt. In Surah Naba, the words are even more glorious. Just going to read the translation. They should behold, have we not made the earth a cradle and made the mountains its pegs, and not created you in pairs, and not made your sleep a means of comfort for you, and not made the night a clothing for you, and the daytime to earn your livelihood, and not built above you seven sturdy skies, and not placed in them a glowing lamp, the sun, and not sent down abundant water from dripping clouds, that we may bring forth grain and vegetation, and gardens of luxurious growth. All this clearly testifies that indeed the day of judgment has an appointed time. The way these words reverberate and resound in our hearts is something that we can only think about. Then, going further, we know that as far as God is concerned, as far as these signs are concerned, the Almighty has directed the attention of the rejectors of the day of judgment towards the obvious signs of His power, providence, and wisdom, which can be observed all around human beings. And these signs are enough to create insight and strike a reminder in a person who has a heart which has the ability to turn towards the truth. So, what are these? First, the Almighty has directed the attention of a human being to His great power and wisdom. Have they not seen the sky above them, how it has been raised high and decked with stars? It is a miracle of God's power and wisdom that the immeasurable sky is free from the slightest of flaws. Now, the implication is that how is it possible for someone whose immense power and wisdom they see above, he can create for the first time and not create again? So this was one of the questions which the idolaters of Mecca used to raise, and they would say that how can all this be made once again? And they are told that if these were created once, how cannot they be created again? In fact, creation a second time is easier than the first. So his power and wisdom, the Almighty has directed the attention of human beings to these tremendous systems of providence and sustenance which are found around human beings. So they are asked to observe how the Almighty has spread out the earth beneath their feet and to maintain its balance, how He has nailed mountains into its expanse, and how great a variety of fodder has He caused to grow from the earth. These plants, which provide human beings with sustenance, are also a means of satisfying their aesthetic taste. Now, the implication is that can it be difficult for someone to recreate mankind from clay, whose great signs of power, wisdom, and providence they are witnessing all around them? Is that possible? Of course, that is not possible. So, viewers, we will end our discussion here today regarding the testimonies of the Day of Judgment. We have just discussed 4 of them. One more remains. But to be honest, this is one of the most fantastic uh, passages that relate to the arrival of the hereafter that we have studied in the course of this session, in which various aspects have been dealt with. First of all, human conscience, human nature is the second thing. The third is the incompleteness of this world. And the fourth are the attributes of God. All these 4 necessitate the arrival of a day of judgment. So, inshallah, we'll take up this discussion, what remains of it, in our next sessions. But for the moment, if you have any questions regarding today's talk, you have the opportunity to raise them, please.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Our first question asks that there are some organisms that are not created from pairs.
Yes, correct. So remember, the Quran is not a book of mathematics. It's a book of literature, and it's a literary book. So in our common language, when we talk about things in this manner, we talk about something which occurs in majority. When I say, let me give you an example, and I often give the example to people who ask this question, that, for example, if I have a class fellow whom I meet every single day at school, 5 days a week, which means about 20 days a month. There are 2 holidays each week. But if I say to one of my other friends that, well, I meet my friend every day of the month, or I meet him every day, even though I meet him just in the working days or the days in which the school is working or is on, I accept it, because you see, when I'm talking of something, I'm talking about its dominant usage. So the Quran is not a book of mathematics in which you need to bisect it in the sense that, well, everything occurs in pairs. It would mean that every single itsy bitsy teeny weeny thing must be in pairs. So that's not the case. In the language of the Quran, the language of the Quran is the same in the language that we speak. So just as when I tell my parent or my friend that I meet you, don't I meet you every day? In spite of the fact there are a couple of holidays each month, that is an acceptable conversation. So in a similar way, when the Quran speaks of this paired phenomena, it actually refers to a vast dominant pair of entities that exist, and not to every single one.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, we as Muslims have the understanding that salvation in the hereafter is contingent upon certain beliefs like belief in God, His prophets, angels, books revealed on His prophets, etc., including His last prophet, and doing good deeds and refraining from the bad. But if there is a person who does not have faith in the above mentioned beliefs, but does good deeds and refrains from the bad to the best of his abilities, then what does Quran say about the salvation of such people?
I mean, it would depend if such people were true seekers of the truth, if they were critical thinkers, which means that being a critical thinker who's born in these times, they would be bound to at least consider the message of the last prophet and the Quran itself, and they could intellectually reject it. But if they don't even give weight to it, this would be against this basic requirement of critical thinking or critical search for the truth, which is the basic responsibility. So if a person has fulfilled this responsibility and still not convinced that, there is a last prophet, or maybe the Quran is the word of God, there could be a case for their salvation. But the thing is that if a person does not even pay heed to this this claim which is made by a flock of people called Muslims, then that would be indifference on his part, and that is something which God will hold responsible. Hold him responsible for.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, life in this world is for test and trial. What would be the nature of life in the hereafter in the absence of any such a test and trial?
Well, that is something that we need to wait and see. And our effort should be more about getting there and sufficing ourselves with the details that have been provided, which means, which actually say that God will provide us with eternal bliss, and it will be a place la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun, in which there will be no fears of the past and no regrets of the past and no fears of the future. It would be something so perfect. So this is as much as we know about the life of paradise. But what more challenges maybe God has placed there is something that we need to get there and find out.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Our next question asks, is there a mention of wudu in the Quran?
Yes, there is. In Surah Nisa and Surah Maida, it is mentioned twice
Without the steps.
with the sequence.
Thank you very much. Ahmed, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Dr. Saleem, basically, I don't have. I just like I'm just have a comment on your lecture that in the end, after all the intellectual discussions and whatever we think, basically it becomes a matter of faith. So people who would say more towards the faith, they can satisfy themselves with those arguments. The people who don't comes towards faith, or who basically they think that this is all man-made, so it becomes difficult for them to convince them about all these faiths, which we actually, for us it's like a reality, but for them they say that it's like a what you can say, something thought of or made up, like that. So do you have any further
I
thing
think
to?
that this is precisely what we have negated in the whole session. I started off by explaining to you the fact that the hereafter, belief in the hereafter, is not a blind reality. It's not something that we are forced to believe. It's not a dogma. This belief has been rationally proved in the Quran, and it is not anything which is religious. For example, that if we have a conscience, there is nothing religious about it. Every human being has a conscience, and that conscience tells that human being what right and wrong are. So that was the first foundation on which we based our reasoning. The second was human nature, as per which we like justice and we don't like injustice. Again, this is something common to all human beings. Thirdly, we talked about the fact of which relates to the incompleteness of this world. That there is some incompleteness found in our own thoughts, in the way things have been created. Again, that is something which is an observable reality. You don't know, you don't need to look at the Quran or any religious scripture. About the fourth thing, yes, I do confess that relates to the attributes of God, which means that those attributes necessitate the existence of the hereafter. So, barring the fourth, the first three are secular in their approach. The first three don't relate to any dogma. They don't relate to any belief that you need to have. So, they basically relate to observations which any person who does not believe in the Quran or any such religious text can still observe. He cannot explain the existence of our conscience and good and evil. He cannot explain that the justice that we have in our nature, that we would never like ourselves to be treated unjustly, but we might end up treating other people justly. There is no explanation for this. And then again, the incoherence which is found in this world. That we have been created with so many potentials. We have so many desires, and we have so much to do, and we can do, but that limitation, that incompleteness that we find outside of us, it does not match our inner microcosm, to say the least. So these first three, as I said, pillars, or you can say they were all related to I would say, as I said, to every human being. It does not relate to any particular religion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Asif, you're up next. Please go ahead.
Yeah, this is regarding verse 14 of Surah Saf. That says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu kunu ansar Allah, kama qala Isa ibn Maryama lil hawariyina man ansari ilallah, قال الحواريون نحن أنصار الله فآمنت طائفة من بني إسرائيل وكفرت طائفة فأيدنا الذين آمنوا على عدوهم فأصبحوا صاهرين. So that
Correct.
means that was the case at that time, that those who rejected Isa alayhi salam, who met their fate at the hands of his followers at that time. Because
Mm-hmm.
usually we heard that in another verse that that says something else, that they would be kept. If this is something that how it happened that they remained,
I
how,
mean,
because we know that
this is known. This is
yeah,
known
there are a
history.
few. Yes.
This is established history. فَأَيَّدْنَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. We helped those people who professed faith in them. It's not that they prevailed. The Almighty helped them. And how did this help come about? History tells us that Titus, the Roman emperor, he attacked Jerusalem. He actually decimated the temple, and the Jews who were actually guilty of denying Jesus, they were scattered from that land. They had to go away. And it was much later when Cyrus the Great of the Persian Emperor, uh, he was able to make them go back and settle once again in Jerusalem and build the temple a second time. So this is established history. And the Quran refers to it in Surah Bani Israel, La tufsidunna fil ardi marratain, that you will create this disorder twice. And when this time of disorder arises, God says that people will enter the temple and totally ravish it. So that is something that is history, and we know that how the Jews were captured as a result, and hence they were taken to task. And as I said, it was not until another 150 years when they were able to come back in the times of Cyrus the Great.
Thank you very much.
Just if you allow a little clarification, that means it was the case that, as you say, that the direct addresses of the messengers, they
Yes,
meet the fate during
they
their
prevail.
they prevail.
Correct.
So I mean, this
Hmm.
is referring to this fact in these verses.
Yes, it does. It is.
So in the other verses where it says that God says that we'll keep you dominant over those who rejected you, ila
Correct.
yawmil qiyamah. Then,
وَجَعَلُوا الَّذِينَ
so these
اتَّبَعُوا.
are two different things, or and how we
No, they are
reconcile this?
different things. So they basically refer to the fact that as far as the Israelites are concerned, they have a special law because in them the Almighty sent prophets from Moses to Jesus. There were scores of prophets sent. So the Israelites or the Bani Israel, they were selected as a nation to bear witness to the truth. So that is a law that relates to the Bani Israel. This فَأَيَّدْنَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا actually relates to the law that relates to the rejection of a messenger. So these are two separate laws and must not be mixed. And the Quran mostly refers to the second law that you have just referred to, which says that the Israelites, they will always, all over this world, they will be taken to task. They will go at one place, they'll inhabit that place, and once again they'll be taken out from that place, and then they go to another place. So Jailul Lazina Tabauka Faukul Lazina Kafaru actually refers to the law which relates to the Banu Abraham or the Zuriyat of Abraham. So that is a separate independent law of the Quran, and often because we don't make this distinction, that one ends up applying this law to the other law. They are two separately discussed laws in the Quran. So one relates to the denial of a messenger, and the other relates to the specific status which the Banu Abraham or Abraham's progeny occupies.
Thank you very much. Bisma, please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Saleem. Hi, Mariam. Assalamualaikum to
Salam.
everybody else. Just a quick question, Dr. Saleem. So, how does one address people who say that, the ahkam or the farais of, the namaz and the, hajj and roza and all, they are God will forgive us if we do good deeds, and He's all merciful and all kind. I'm a decent human being, and I don't commit any fraud, and I'm nice to people, and I'm honest, but I don't need to do all this, and God is all forgiving. So how does one respond to a statement like that?
I think the best way to respond to such people is to give them an example from everyday life. And a human being has a family. So, as a family, we have a vertical relationship and we have a horizontal relationship. So, vertically, we are related to our parents who have created us, and horizontally, we are related to our siblings who are around us and have the same stature as us. So, in a similar way, if a person, for example, is good to his siblings but he's not good to his parents, what will we call that person? I mean, we will say that person has maybe recognized the rights of his siblings, but he is someone who is ungrateful to his parents, or he does not know how those parents are related to him and how he needs to respect them. And he always thinks that, well, whatever I do with my parents, they'll forgive me, whereas they might and they might not. In a similar way, yes, it might be that God may forgive them, but there is no guarantee for that. And a person who is connected to fellow human beings by being a good person, a compassionate person, a kind person, but in the vertical sense, he has no obligation towards God. So, just as a person who is not thankful to his parents, we would not, I mean, we would never be praiseworthy of such a person. In a similar way, how can this happen that you are good to human beings, but not good, or maybe don't fulfill the rights of God? How can we regard that person to be too good? Yes, if that person thinks that, well, even if I am not fulfilling the rights of God, oh, maybe He will forgive me. I mean, that can be the case, but the thing is that it's not something to be banking upon. But how can we know that? God may forgive them and may not forgive them, and
Right.
especially when this happens, when that other people they are, I mean, they are attached themselves to God and they are adhering to His directives. They would say that, well, God, we did all our best and we paid our homage to you, and so we've got our reward. But these people who did not do anything, how can they be placed in such a high position? So that would be against justice also.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Salim. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Naushad Shafkat, please go ahead. Oh, Bisma, please go ahead.
So, Dr. Salim, just wanted to ask you that the translation you've done for Al Bayan, is it out in the US? Do we have it here? The
Yes, we do.
complete, the
Of
complete, not the
course.
translation. I think that you were doing the tafsir. If I'm correct,
Yes, that's also available.
that's available. I know it's available in Pakistan, but in the US
Oh,
also.
it's available in the US also.
Okay.
If you contact our office in Dallas,
So
they'll
I
let you
do
know.
have the Al Bayan that I got uh, from your store, but I believe I'm now maybe I'm getting the name incorrect. But there was something that you were working on with 5 volumes. What was that? I forget what that was. You
That
were
was
translating it,
the tafsir of Ustaz. The full volume, I mean the full tafsir, the full annotated translation of Al
right?
Bayan. Yes, that has been
That has
published.
also
It's
that's
available.
available now.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Very much. Asif, please go ahead.
Yes, my question is related to a hadith that's found in several sources, including
Hmm.
Sunan Abi Dawud and others. That says Khilafatun Nabuwa Salasuna Sana Summa Yu'tillahu al-Mulk,
Hmm.
in this way. So this is the hadith. So that says, what's the authenticity of this hadith, particularly in the context that according to this hadith, the Khilafah on the lines of the Prophet that lasted for 30 years after the Prophet's demise,
Hmm.
and that covers the caliphates of Abu Bakr, as usually we listen and read in various books, Hazrat Umar, Usman, Ali, and Hassan. My question is whether on the wordings "Ala min Harjit Nabuwa" on the lines of the Nabi prophethood, that means it fulfills the basic requirement of Amruhum Shura Bainahum, And in case of Caliphate of Ali, we see that his caliphate was established at the hands of the rebels predominantly. And so, and similarly, it was full of a political turmoil during the entire, period of his caliphate. So, if it was Khilafa ala minhajin nubuwa, then in what way it was so? What's the authenticity of this hadith?
I mean, the hadith is absolutely authentic, and Ali Rizala Anhu was also among the rightly guided caliphates. And as far as this principle of Amruhum Shura Bainahum is concerned, it was also followed. The only thing is that the electoral college, to take a modern term, was something that was miscalculated, and instead of uh, getting advice from the Ummah that had spread as far, he just took advice from the people of Medina, and the people of Medina actually elected him. So that was a miscalculation on his part. So it's not that the principle was violated, it was the application of that principle in which an error was made. And errors, of course, can be made by any person. So the principle was still there. The Quraysh, they elected the dominant, the person who was there for them, but instead of involving a larger electoral college and going as far as the empire had spread, they just took the opinion of those who were found in Medina. So this was a miscalculation or an error on that part. Otherwise, this was absolutely fine as far as Amruhum Shura Bainahum is concerned.
But by that time, the geographic jurisdiction of the Islamic State had expanded. It was not limited to Medina
That's what I'm
only.
saying. That's what I'm saying. That this was an error of miscalculation on their part. They should have considered the opinions of people who had spread far and wide, and that was what should have done. But unfortunately, because of certain turmoil situation that had arisen, Ali Ta'ala Anhu thought that, well, in order to quell any rebellion, in order to have the caliph in place right after Usman's assassination, it was more important. So I think it was a misjudgment on his part, but that this misjudgment does not mean that the principles was violated. It was just uh, inappropriate, I would say, or a inaccurate application of the principle. The principle is the real thing, and that was adhered to. I mean, the principle was accepted. Only the way that principle was applied, we find it to be erroneous.
Further clarity is required, like if it was Medina, there again we read in the history that majority of the companions at that time, they didn't, even those who initially pledged,
Hmm.
they accepted him as but later they also, like Hazrat Talha, Hazrat Zubair, Mu'minin Hazrat Aisha, they also, and other
I
the
know. I mean,
companions.
these details. Everyone knows these details. But as I said, it was a part. It was a human error on the part of Ali Rizal Anhu. That is what best we can say. And that has persisted. I mean, this carried on, and that is something that should not have happened. So it's not that we are making something. I mean, they were not error free. They were human beings, and they were not prophets of God. So I think the principle was still adhered to, but they should have he should have taken into consideration the greater part of the empire, which had spread far and wide, and as you have said, other companions also. And there must be some reason, because you see, history does not report a lot of things. What exactly was the situation at that time? Remember, the rebels had surrounded Usman's house for many years. I mean, many days, and it was a very terrible situation in Medina. It was like chaos and anarchy. Someone had to be installed as the caliph. Maybe there was some emergency which we might not have come to know, and only on the day of judgment maybe we'll ask him, and that why didn't he take a broader counsel from all the rest of the ummah, and why did he? The people who were actually guilty of killing Usman were the ones who voted for his installment. So all these questions are there in the air, and that they will be asked, inshallah, once we meet him. But I do feel that it was just a inaccurate application of the principle, a human error, I would say, and that is something that might be also explained if we come to know through his own mouth the version that he was facing. I mean, you see, you don't know how things are and the way they are reported.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. We'll take a really short, quick question from Ammar Rasul, and that'll be it for it. That'll be the end of our session. We'll be out of time. Ammar Rasul, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saab.
Walaikum assalam.
Dr. Saab, I wanted to first of all very quickly inform that Api Ruhi, my mother, passed away last night.
Oh,
She
so
was
sad.
part of this group.
Inna lillahi wa inna
And,
ilaihi raji'un. We pray for her forgiveness. She was a wonderful lady. She was part of our sessions. She would ask questions, and she was very inquisitive, and she had a very sensitive and a compassionate mind. We do hope that God will forgive us and elevate her ranks in paradise.
बहुत शुक्रिया सर. So she was the one who introduced me to this group, and it made her very happy whenever I asked a question. So my very quick question is about my life. I have these sort of like now strange thoughts. I've had these thoughts for some time because I always think about death, and I always think about what will happen when my mother goes away, and I always thought that there is nothing else to do. I'm 50 years old. I'm very accomplished. I have done very well in my field of filmmaking. I've built a home for my mother, and she's not here anymore. I have traveled the world, but I have no personal relationships because for the last 15, 20 years, I was dedicated to just looking after my parents. I was looking after my father, then he passed away around 2.5 years ago. And then I was completely dedicated to looking after my mother. And now she has passed away as well. I have siblings, but they are married and they have their own families. So my very difficult question is that now I have nothing to do. Now, sir, is it a fair prayer? Like I often say to a very close friends of mine, that if I was given the choice right now of just like a fair choice, I'm not suicidal and I'm not thinking about ending my life at all, but if somebody came to me like a angel, and the angel gave me a choice, I would say that yes, I am ready, this is a good time. So is it a fair prayer?
Yes, so I get your point. I really feel my concern for your situation, and I think all of us who are hearing you would sympathize with you, and it's a difficult time of your life. But let me tell you, I mean, life and death is something which is in the hands of God, and it's not going to change with our own wish or dua. But more importantly, what I would like to suggest to you is to get hold of yourself, pick up yourself. There's still a lot to do in this world. Remember, you have been serving two great personalities, which are your parents, but still there is a lot of work to be done. Humanity itself needs service. You can pick up any area of service to serve humanity, to help humanity. There are so many things that people need. It could be education, it could be health, it could be providing any other facility that we find is missing. So I think you still have a lot to do, and if you have established yourself in your livelihood and you're well set, I think you should use your resources in choosing any other welfare project that interests you, which is around you, wherever you are situated. And there are plenty of welfare projects that Pakistan is undertaking in the private sector, and I think you should join hands, or maybe join one of them, whichever one appeals to you the most, and give your best to it, and you'll still feel that this is something. It's like a fulfillment of what you have. It's like a continuation, in fact, of what you were doing for your parents. So once they have passed away, I think maybe God wants you to expand your horizon, expand your scope of work, and include other people who are distraught, other people who are underprivileged, other people who are handicapped. I mean, I mean, the amount of people who need help is so much that I think you will find solace in this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Ahmad, and to everyone who's felt lost in their life, which is all of us here. The cycle of life, and the way to you need patience and strength to get through it, and no one but Allah can really give you that. But inshallah we'll be together. Inshallah under his mercy, may we reunite with our loved ones in hereafter. And with a career like filmmaking, there is so much too that you can do to touch other people's heart. It's not everyone has that kind of talent or profession. So you can use that for so much good too. Somebody is asking who we're talking about. We're talking about Abi Ruhi, who was a consistent participant of ours. She used to come to our sessions, and may Allah grant us the highest degree in Jannat al-Firdaus, inshallah. And with that, we'll continue with our textual study of the Quran, inshallah, tomorrow. And please, everyone, take care. It's rough for everyone knows what loss feels like. But like Dr. Saleem said, get a hold of yourself. It's not easy. Give yourself grace, give yourself love and time. It takes time to overcome these things, and you never really truly overcome them. But inshallah, we have afterlife to look forward to. And Shaban Ansari, is there something you'd like to add?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Mariam. अमार की बात से अमार बहुत अफसोस हुआ, अल्लाह ताला उनकी मग़फ़िरत करे। वो तो मैं उनको क्लास में सुनती थी, तो मैं अपना भी एक गम शेयर करना चाहती हूँ क्लास में। डॉक्टर साहब, आप जानते हैं कि मेरे भाई का अभी जो 20 अक्टूबर को जो है उन्होंने उनको लास्ट स्टेज कैंसर का बताया है। तो मेरी जो इस वक्त सिचुएशन है वो ऐसी कि मुझे शुरू के 10 दिन तो नींद ही नहीं आई बिल्कुल भी, और मतलब ये कि मेरी आंखों से आंसू ही नहीं रुक रहे किसी तरह भी। तो मुझे तो अपने अकीदे पे और अपने खुदा से ताल्लुक़ पर सवाल उठने शुरू हो गए कि क्या मुझे खुदा पर ट्रस्ट नहीं है, और मैं क्यों इतने मतलब ये कि हर वक्त जो है बस मेरा ध्यान वही, रात को भी मेरी नींद खुलती है, मतलब कोई टाइम ऐसा नहीं गुजरता जिसमें वो मुझे अपने भाई की ये बीमारी याद नहीं रहती है। और मतलब डॉक्टर ने कहा है कि 1 साल है सिर्फ उनका, और बस आप उनको खिलाए पिलाए, कोई ट्रीटमेंट नहीं है, खुश रखें उनको। तो मुझे तो अपने उस पर सवाल उठने लगे कि क्या मुझे खुदा से मोहब्बत नहीं है, मुझे खुदा पे भरोसा नहीं है, क्या मेरा ईमान कमजोर है जो मैं हर वक्त रोती रहती हूँ। तो इसके बारे में मुझे भी कुछ तसल्ली दें कि मैं क्या करूं।
नहीं, आप वही करें जो अभी आपने अम्मार को तसल्ली देते हुए किया था कि अल्लाह ताला जो है उनकी जो स्कीम है उसके तहत हम सब ने जाना है, और जब हम सब ने जाना है तो उसमें बस हमें ये देखना चाहिए कि जितनी मोहलत मिली हुई है वो एक लम्हा हम अल्लाह ताला की फरमान के मुताबिक गुजारें और उसकी खल्क की खिदमत करें। खल्क की जो खिदमत है वो ऐसी चीज़ है जिससे आपको अपना गम भी कम महसूस होगा। जब आप दूसरों के गमों को अपनाएंगी तो आपको अपना गम कम लगेगा। और दुनिया में बहुत गम है, दुनिया में बहुत परेशानियां हैं, दुनिया के अंदर इस कदर यूँ समझ लीजिए कि इंसान जो है वो पस्ती में भी है, और इसके साथ साथ उसके हालात इस तरह के हैं कि खाने और पीने और इलाज और तालीम और बहुत सारी इस तरह की चीज़ों में वो अपने आप को आजमाइश में पाता है कि अगर आप चंद लोगों की भी खिदमत कर सकेंगी, उनके साथ उनकी बिपताई सुन लें, उनको कुछ सहारा दे सकें, उनके से गुफ्तगू कर सकें, कोई कम्युनिटी सर्विस ज़रूर करने की कोशिश करें। कम्युनिटी सर्विस का मतलब है किसी ऐसी तंजीम से आप रब्ता करें जो हफ्ते में 1 या 2 दिन आपको रज़ा कराना तौर पे वहाँ टाइम गुजारना पड़े, क्योंकि इससे बहुत ढारस होती है और अंदाज़ा होता है कि हम बहुत से लोगों से फिर भी बहुत बेहतर हैं, और अल्लाह ताला की सरज़मीन में जो लोगों को आजमाइशें हैं वो बेपनाह हैं। सो ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि आप खिदमत के जज्बे के साथ अपने आप को जोड़ के रखें, और ये जज्बा ही है जो इंसान को ज़िंदा रखता है।
Thank you for your words of wisdom, Dr. Saleem. And thank you, everyone. It's not easy to share such things. It's also not easy to deal with thoughts and those feelings. But it's part of our trial, and this world isn't gonna last forever. And that's the solace that we get from knowing this. So, inshallah, we'll see y'all tomorrow in another session of textual study of the Quran. Please take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and pray for all of us. We all need prayers, and inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa
Inshallah.
rahmatullahi wa
Wa alaikum
barakatuh.
salam.